You are listening to Well Met, a Hearthstone podcast brought to you by BlizzPro.com.
Well met.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 32 of Well Met Podcast. I'm John. I'm here every week pushing the buttons. Actually now I'm clicking on the really tiny bars in 12-point font. It has been that kind of day, so we're going to just skip right past it and go all the way to Saskatoon, Canada, where it's colder, baseball is happening, and something else. What's up, Kevin Hovdestad?
Not too much, John, and it's not too cold here yet. It's no snow yet. Soon, though.
All right, that's fair. Cool. No snow? It's like 80 degrees here. I don't know if we're going to get a winter this year. We probably will.
No, we'll have snow on the ground by the time that I leave for BlizzCon. I will almost guarantee it.
BlizzCon is so soon.
So soon.
All the way from Kansas City, a little less scenic. I hear that the mountains are beautiful in Kansas City. No? Okay, it's JR. Hey, JR.
Yeah, I don't think there's any mountains here. Last time I looked outside, which was a long time ago, I don't remember seeing any mountains.
Just your biceps, right?
Yeah, just, of course.
Nice.
You can see those from anywhere.
Okay. Oh, man, this is an awful start to a show, so we need to just go ahead. We need to talk about our weeks. We're not going to go to Kevin because Kevin just ran away. He literally got out of his chair, ran straight out the door. He's not coming back, and now it's his evil twin. Did you change your shirt? Maybe.
Yeah. No, I could have, but I didn't.
I think you just changed his shirt.
He's in the
talking
Oscars,
about
man.
my
There's no
biceps.
costume change.
Okay.
Booted out of here.
Kevin, tell us about your week in Hearthstone first. And then we're going to do me. Then we're going to do JR last because, well, I'm sick of his attitude.
I understand. I had a good week, actually. I gave up, obviously, on my initial, all shaman month project. Tried a few other things. I've been watching just to see what people are doing with deck lists since the disclosure of some big news that we're going to talk about later. But I actually I went back to my legend list, the druid list that I hit legend with back at the end of August. And I used it to scoot straight to rank 5. I think I was a game away, lost a couple, won a couple, lost a couple, won a couple, and then hit it earlier this afternoon, finally. But yeah, I mean, I played a tiny couple of games one afternoon and just blew through that sort of mess to get past the rank 10 gutter that I had gotten trapped in. I don't know if I'm going to try to go any further than that this season, just with how much work I've got going on and getting ready for BlizzCon, but it's not bad. And it's neat to see lots of people experimenting, trying new things now that we know that there's changes coming and people want to see what they can make work again. So I've seen decks that I haven't seen in months on ladder, which is really cool. But what about you, John? Where are you at?
I'm at a hefty rank 15, still enjoying my sabbatical from Hearthstone. Yeah, it's a sabbatical. It's actually paid time away. So
very nice.
Essentially how it works is about a week before the season ends, I'll jump up to rank 5. That's how a sabbatical works, right?
Something like that.
Something like that. All right. Well, we actually have some big news. Kevin, you were first on the team to go to Legend. And then it was me who went to Legend shortly after. And that's it. So big news. Good job, Kev. We're still the most legendary. But JR, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your week?
Yeah, so I went and watched the Kansas City Royals this week go play baseball and beat up on Canada. That was a good time. Up 2-0.
Nice.
So, beating up on Kevin and his legendary status over there. I know he doesn't care about baseball, though. But
you have 5 seconds to tell us before we literally don't mention it on the show, and then no one will ever know.
Right.
I will edit it out.
All right. Well, then I played Hearthstone, and last week, I was saying, hey, I'm pretty close to Legend, and then, I kind of blamed John for not hitting it. And then after the show, I just went on a tear, and sure enough, hit legend about 10 days into the season. So
Hey,
they will do that with Aggro Druid.
Congrats, sir.
Thank you.
That's huge. As you guys can now tell, if Kevin, JR, and I can hit legend,
Pretty much anybody
can
can.
hit freaking legend.
Yeah.
Congrats, man.
Yeah, congrats, Chair. It is probably worth noting, like, I did it in the last couple of hours of the season. When I hit legend, I got like 2,300, I think. And John, when you hit yours, it was in the like 2,000-ish range, wasn't it?
I rolled in at about 8. Or no, it was. I think it was right on 200. I ended at about 1,800.
Okay, yeah. So we both like did it late in the season. JR crushed in, like he said, after barely a week into the season. And at one point, I saw you post a screenshot, man. It was top 100 legend for a period of time there.
Yeah, I was able to get up at the time of that screenshot. I just hit 95 in North America. I went as high as 32 in North America, and then I just dropped like crazy after that because I didn't play for a couple days, and then that drops you, and then I went on a losing streak. That drops you. I'm probably like 400 right now. I think it's the last time I looked.
Getting a losing streak at legend drops you ranks?
Yeah. Not like, yeah,
Not out of legend, but yeah.
Yeah, not like out of legend.
Guys, it was sarcasm.
That.
Come on.
You don't know sarcasm.
Come on.
Don't.
I thought you were being serious. I'm sorry.
I don't know. I've never lost at legend rank before. So
legend was like, no, I'm done.
Done.
Season's over in 30 minutes.
Quit. That's it.
But I will say though, after I hit legend, like playing ranked mode has just been like, it hasn't been very stressful or anything like that because I feel like I'm just playing with house money right now. It doesn't matter if I win or lose.
You can't get dropped back out of legend. You don't ever lose that status for the whole season, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, and you know, I'm getting to play like top tier players and things like that, and just playing the game for fun, and rather than being stressed out about trying to hit a goal or anything like that. If I worried about like wanting to hit like top 100 or top 10 or something like that, I can see it being a little stressful, but I really don't care if I hit that high or not. My goal was to hit legend, and some other day maybe my goal will be try to finish a season top 100 or something. But right now, I just don't care.
No.
So
care enough to get there. That's how I felt. It's like, as long as I get that card back, man, I will be so happy with myself in Hearthstone. That's really all I need. So
yeah, I just won the card back. That was all I wanted. I don't care if I'm good at Hearthstone. I just won the card back.
now come on, Tespa. Just need that Tespa card back, and I'm ready to go. Well, again, JR, congrats. Although I have a bone to pick with you, sir. You
What's
gave
that?
me so much crap for hitting legend with Secret Paladin, and you go and hit it with Aggro Druid? Really?
Aggro Druid was new. I mean,
so is Secret Paladin, not the newest, but fairly new.
It was beating the meta. It destroys Secret Paladin.
But you totally ripped me apart for using a quote unquote gimmicky deck, by the way, which Tice and Calento both brought to the
save it for the next PvP. You guys can have this fight again.
But you gave me such crap, sir. And then you romp through with Aggro Druid, which, don't get me wrong, is a good ladder deck. But in the end, it's pretty gimmicky, right? People adjusted to it almost right away, and it's really, subpar at this point.
Yes and no, because it still has the qualities of mid-range Druid. And if I hadn't played Aggro Druid, I probably would have played mid-range Druid. And it's just because it's a deck that I'm probably the most used to right now, know how to play the best. Yes, there's the whole, I can drop a turn 2 or 3 8/8 giant out there and destroy some things with that if people aren't ready for it. But right now, it's not. People are ready for that. I mean, they're teching in, Sludge Belchers. They're teching in BGH right now to take care of it. So I feel like that final push to Legend, I was hitting people that did understand how to play against it. So I was relying a lot more on the late game than I was the early game, other than just getting insane good draws here and there, which help you out early. And if they don't have an answer, then they're just done. So
sure. I'm just saying, man, just that makes me pretty upset. overall.
I'm
You're going to get
so-
a punch in the gut when I see you at BlizzCon.
I apologize that you are butthurt over that.
You're getting so muted. You're getting so muted.
This week in Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft.
All right, so first and foremost, well-met news. Again, we are going to be at BlizzCon. We're going to be at Con Before the Storm, November 5th, 9:30 p.m. We're going to be hanging out with the guys from Golden Wisp. Get your tickets on Eventbrite so they know how many people are going. It's going to be a blast. We don't need to jump about it. We talked about it almost every week now. Just a reminder, put it in your calendars if you're going to be there at BlizzCon. We'd love to see you. But now we get to talk about some of the tournament stuff going on. So, a couple of big tournaments happened this weekend, which is kind of interesting going into BlizzCon. Usually it stays a little bit quieter, but not this week. First, we had the finals for Starladder, Hearthstone Season 1, which was a really, really good amount. Kind of a surprise, but Stan Sifka beat Tice, and he's going to go ahead and win the first season of Starladder. Orange and Clento in third and fourth. So really awesome tournament. We saw quite a bit of Secret Paladin JR. I can't remember, was it 0 or 0 aggro druids brought to Starladder? 0. Oh, okay. Thanks. I had to go to the fact checkers. Fact check. Yep. Still 0. So yeah. So really great overall tournament. Really fun to watch. Interesting fun fact, Tice, before going into the finals there, was briefly ranked the highest on Gosu Gamers that any Hearthstone player has ever been ranked. So he is on a tear right now. I believe 20-7, something like that, over his last 27. Like, insane on a tear. Did either of you guys get to watch some Starladder?
I did not, but with that stat, I mean, like I said last week, Tice has to be the favorite to go ahead and win that BlizzCon World Championship.
I caught bits and pieces. I thought it was interesting because it was a very unique format. Like, you're used to seeing everything go to elimination at the end, not that sort of like round robin format where everybody played off to see how they'd finish. And Stansifka won by virtue of having one less match loss than Tice did, right? Like, that was the determining factor. So it was pretty cool because it was like, this is not just did you win that one series on a coin flip or not? It was like every game counted for something. And that was really neat to me. I didn't know what to expect going in, but in that respect, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. We also had the Asus ROG, or Republic of Gamers, Play It Cool Hearthstone Marathon. Now, of all the clusters so far in Hearthstone tournaments, Asus is probably up there. They did this in the past where they did not clarify if stars mattered. And so Forsen and Savitz actually, back in May, went head-to-head in a best-of-3 in which Savitz beat Forsen despite Forsen having more stars than Savitz. They went head-to-head in a tiebreaker, and Savitz beat him. So this time around, we do a 24-hour stream. We've got Savitz, Firebat, Forsen, and not Stansiska, Raynad. Nope, it was Raynad.
Oh, you're right, Raynad, yeah.
So Raynad. And so they all go. So Raynad did everything but become legendary. And so he sat at rank 2, but everyone else got to legend. But Savitz and Forsen were hanging up in like the, rank 100, 200. So how it works, how the rules work is basically at the end of the time, so at the end of 24 hours, you finish whatever game you're on. And so Savitz finished, and he finishes at rank 115. So he's like, cool, I'm done. And then Forsen is in the middle of his game afterwards, so, but he gets to finish that game, and he slides up to rank 115. So we have like a tie, kind of. So, really weird. There was a lot of stuff going on, not really knowing what to do. Nobody accounted for the two players getting the same exact legend rank. You play for 24 hours straight, and then you guys get the exact same legend. Like, it was insane. There's a big controversy because Forsen had a few people just concede out of nowhere. So like they're worried about that affecting it. And there was a lot going on, a lot of controversy. We're not going to touch on it too much because, well, we have no insider information. It just is what it is. So they go into a best of 3 though, and this time Forsen beat Savitz. So, man, don't go to Reddit right now because it is a cesspool, but people are flaming, angry, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, anyways, it was really interesting, but overall, the 24-hour streams are really fun to watch for me because they're like kind of doing it. You can see Savitz and Forsen were like jabbing at each other because they're sitting pretty close to each other and they're just like jawing back and forth. It was pretty funny. Did you guys get to watch any of this?
Just a little bit, but the thing that I was really shocked by, because you'd think that like at this point, given that you have run some of these tournaments, like this is not the first time they've done this, you'd think maybe they would know. They all got banned at the outset when they went to get started because all of the accounts were logging in from the same IP, getting hit with charges on the same credit card. So it looked like it was a bunch of fraudulent accounts and they locked them all out. So they had to get in touch with the community managers and get the accounts unblocked so they could go on with the stream. And that was fun, kind of just to watch them all kind of sit there and be like, well, we're going to start soon, guys.
Yeah, it was not the best run tournament, but it was still really fun overall to watch. And you can't ask for a more climactic ending than guys tying at Legend, kind of.
Well, and last time nobody hit Legend, right? Like that, the last time they did this, the whole reason
like
the star
4.
thing, yeah, the reason the star thing got settled was because that was about as far as they could get, was that like rank 4-ish range. But then this time they all but one made Legend, and like, that's crazy to me that you could do it that fast. I mean, they had pretty legit accounts in terms of having lots of cards to play with and stuff, but still, that's pretty nuts.
I mean, JR did it in like 10 days, so a guy like Savitz can't do it in like 12 hours. I don't know what else there is to do.
I mean, I probably did in like 12 hours total, so, you know.
It's true, I guess, actually, when you stop and think about it that way. Like, the actual like 5 to Legend span only took me 4 or 5 hours when I sat down to do it.
Yeah. Although
it like I've never sat and played Hearthstone for 24 straight hours. I have no idea how I'd do.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I would be
pretty
dead
fatigued
by the end of it.
They did get a 1 hour
be...
break, so they had a mandatory 1 hour break, and then they could break too. Like they would break from time to time, just take a break, walk it off. But, yeah.
A lot of Red Bull.
Yeah, so much Red Bull. I'd be done. I'd be like raring to go.
But I mean, that's the way I feel that you hit Legend is you just sit down for a weekend.
Just crush it.
Meta is still the same and hasn't changed for that. Because the meta really shifts like every week, I feel like. Like maybe not dramatically, but just a little bit. And you might be seeing different decks the next time you play if you decide not to play until the next weekend or something like that. And what you were playing that was working last week may not be working this week because you're seeing different decks. Whereas that's why I wanted to try to go ahead and hit Legend with that aggro druid, because I knew that, now is the time if I wanted to, continue playing this deck. If I waited a week, people were going to really tech really hard against it and I wouldn't have, the same chance. So if you want to hit Legend, I feel like that's the way to do it, is sit down for one weekend or one day or whatever and just grind through it.
Yeah, you feel like you just have lightning captured in a bottle. Like I was playing and I came back after my like nap and was like, all right, one more game and just I'll play till I lose. And I was at like a rank 1 when I lost my first game and went, well, no, I mean, I'm this close. I have to try now. And yeah, like you feel like you've broken the game because you just win games you have no business winning because you finally found something that sort of cracked through what people are expecting to see, and that's how you scoot through.
Yeah, for me, I'll like skate around to rank 5. Once I get to rank 5, I'm super intentional with my Hearthstone time.
Yeah,
and it's like because that's when stuff happens. Everything else is like meh, really just a coin flip with who you're gonna get and the matchups, and as long as you're playing semi-competent, you're just going to kind of keep climbing. So
yeah, you could take just about anything to rank 5, truthfully. You get lucky on some streaks. You could take pretty much any deck to rank 5.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Except you apparently can't take Shaman there. So
No, Shaman cannot break 10. That's the rules.
You said 11 last week.
No, I said 10. I said 10.
I think it was 11. We'll go to the
You're
fact
a liar.
checkers for that one.
Yeah.
Pretty sure
I
it
say
was
we
11.
go. Yeah. Fact checkers. Can you go fact check?
Do we have
They
fact
have-
checkers now?
This is going to be like someone's going to listen to the show for the first time this week and be like, the hosts just keep arguing with each other and calling each other names. It's really weird. I think this is just a lot of pent up aggression. I think that we've had over the past. For me, it's with all the technology stuff going on the last 24 hours. But
For me,
Like,
I'm just amped up.
you're
because-
just an 85-year-old curmudgeon
what?
Goodness, what?
in a 30-something-year-old body.
I'm just amped up, man.
He's gonna whack you with a cane,
I
BlizzCon
went
now.
to 3 postseason
true.
baseball games in 4 days of
Feel-
just celebration and 40,000 people cranked up as high as they can go. I didn't even know if I'd be on the show because my voice was shot yesterday.
I was hoping.
Yeah, I know you were.
All right, we need to stop this. No more baseball talk. We need to jump back into this. Kevin, we have had some huge news this week. And naturally, as the resident beard man, you get to talk about it.
Yeah, me and my beard are pretty excited about this. I'm not going to lie. So everybody knows, because it's not like we're spoiling something for the first time here on the show, the big change coming to Hearthstone this coming week, we've already actually seen it on the Android client, is a significant nerf to Warsong Commander. The card used to read that all of your minions with 3 or less attack get charge. It now gives +1 attack to minions with charge. Now, I'm not clear on if it's an aura, and that aura goes away when Warsong Commander dies, or if it works like the old Warsong Commander, where if you were to play a charge minion, it would retain that stat bump. Not sure. Would have to look into it. I haven't played with the new one yet, and that as I haven't seen that clarified anywhere. So if you know, hit us up and tell us. I'd love to find out. Anyway, this is crazy. We've been talking for like 6-8 weeks about how Patron probably needed to change eventually, not because it was overpowered, not because it was a deck that wasn't technically demanding to play well, but because it just had such a significant impact on the meta, and it made it so that the pro scene relied on what did or didn't play well with Patron. And now they've gone and instead of the like minor changes that we had suggested, like JR kept talking about changing Frothing Berserker, I was really, campaigning for changes to Battle Rage. They killed Warsong Commander. This card went from arguably not great, only ever worked in a couple of aggro warrior decks, to it will never see play again. It will never touch the board in Hearthstone ever again. So,
I don't agree with that.
well, we'll get into that. So before we jump into the conversation and what this means, I did want to just throw a quick note out about Ben Brode's video. So Ben Brode has started putting out these sort of design insight videos. It was really cute, actually. He was on Twitter talking about it and basically said he has to record them at home after his kid goes to sleep. So it's just like his webcam kind of angled away from the rest of the room. So that's why you see him just like tucked up in a corner against a white wall or whatever. But he talked through why they did it a little bit. And it's a pretty generic explanation. So we're going to try to dive into it a little more here. But he does basically say that Warsong Commander was the real root of the problem. And so rather than address the symptoms now and have a new card emerge down the road that recreated this problem, they just wanted to kneecap it and have it be done with. And that's why they changed Warsong Commander. So there's a lot to talk about here. I don't even know where to start. John, your initial reaction to the nerf.
I mean, I don't know if this is like a nerf or like literally you said, kneecapping. This is not just even taking someone out at the knees. This is just ripping their legs off and throwing them on opposite sides of the
Like
room.
hitting them with their own legs. Yeah.
Yeah, hitting them with their own legs that you just capitated. His kappa was detated from his head. Sorry, that's a Michael Scott quote.
Somewhere that's like a Twitch.
It was absolutely a massacre of the deck and archetype. But honestly, I got to hand it to JR. JR kind of called up something that Ben Brode, addressed first and foremost as because of Warsong Commander, you were punished for having a board and a board present, not overextending, but having any sort of board presence at all. And that just made it not fun. And so, I mean, they addressed, in my opinion, what should have been fixed in the beginning. And I think they did it the right way. I'm surprised such an extensive and like, I would even call it inelegant nerf. It took them so long to do, right? Because, I mean, we've been griping about this deck for months. And, I mean, if we would have just said, I just think that they should totally take this card out of the equation. I mean, if you called it Warsong Commander or changed the name, like, you know, Ben Brode talks about wanting to kind of keep the identity of the card. But I don't really think that they did that at this point. It's really just kind of, it could be any other card in the world at this point. It's just not that exciting. And to your point, Kev, not that playable, but man, it's a gruesome massacre. And to happen so close before BlizzCon, I can't imagine why they thought that this timing was the right timing, but it's sure going to make BlizzCon a lot more interesting for sure.
Right. And we'll circle back to the BlizzCon thing before we do. JR, your take on the nerf, just like first reaction to it.
I mean, I really still feel like Frothing Berserker was the right nerf, but I understand why they did what they did. I mean, it really came down to, like, if you think about all of the nerfs that they have done in the past, like almost a good majority of them deal with charge, because charge is such a ridiculous mechanic in Hearthstone. Because it plays around what their idea of Hearthstone is, where you play some stuff and then I get to respond to and play some stuff to what you played, and then you get, you know, in turn, because there's no like instance or anything like that like you see in Magic the Gathering, where I can't respond on your turn to what you've done. And charge gets around that, because charge allows you to do a bunch of stuff out of nowhere and really surprise your opponent and, you know, do some crazy things. Like if you think of the old one-turn kill warrior, where Warsong Commander was originally nerfed, where you just placed down Molten Giants because it was based on the casting cost of the card rather than the attack power of the card. So you just play down Molten Giants and just, you know, kill your opponent in one turn. If you think about the old Unleash the Hounds, back in the early beta, it was the same way, where you'd play a bunch of beasts and kill your opponent turn 7 by not playing a single card all game until turn 7, and then you kill them with everything you had in your hand. And you know, then the new, and then Unleash the Hounds went through so many different variations because of the charge command mechanic. And Leroy was another one that got nerfed because, you know, it was really good in Miracle Rogue and things like that, because you can just sit there and shadow step it and shadow step it and shadow step it and just hit your opponent's face. So I think they're going to be a lot more careful now in the future on using charge, and you know, maybe just get rid of it completely, or make charge cards very, very weak, that they don't affect that they don't have an effect, a chance of affecting the game as much. But I feel like if they wanted to keep Grim Patron a decent card, that they didn't need to get rid of Warsong Commander like they did. I still feel like Frothing Berserker was a true bad card, and I feel like the nerf should have been either they only increase in damage on friendly minions getting hit, or once they get above a certain threshold of attack, they no longer head charge. But I think this allows them, though, to, you know, make cards without the fear of Warsong Commander breaking them.
Okay, and that's fair, and that's kind of where I wanted to go next anyways, because I don't honestly think that charge was ever the root of the problem, because you still see tons of charge-based combos and stuff elsewhere in the game. by that logic, they would have to change Tundra Rhino and a bunch of other stuff that they're not going to change, right? Because it's a very complex combination of card cost and what the activation requirements are and a bunch of other stuff that all sort of came together in a very specific package with Patron Warrior in ways that it can't with things like Druid Combo or Tundra Rhino or a bunch of other stuff. Like, and Charge technically is countered by Taunt, right? But the design space thing is something that we were going to touch on here for a little bit, because that's a big part of why this change, I think, on paper actually looks like the best possible change, right? There were lots of things they could have done, but this solves the most problems long term because it's going to allow Blizzard to get more creative and print better and cooler low cost and low attack minions again, which was going to eventually be a problem. They were going to be really cramped in what they could do with neutral minions in that 3 and under attack, and especially at a low cost point because of Warsong Commander specifically. So in that respect, do you guys agree that this was probably the smartest change to open up the most choices down the road for the dev team?
I think it's the safe one. Like, I don't know about the smartest. Like, I think there's a lot of really, really elegant ways to, change cards and things like that. But this is safe. This card is never going to be a problem card again. And because of that, we're not really going to, it was safe. It basically lets them do a blank canvas and kind of reapproach as well what charge or aggro or whatever looks like for the warrior class too, as well as, opens up that design space for neutrals.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I was thinking about it now. The best comparison I could come up with was something like Emperor Thaurissan, right? Every card that ever gets printed in the game now, they have to stop and check themselves against what happens if it gets a tick of Emperor Thaurissan. And they have to calculate around all of the combinations that can be activated by that card now. It's a design space limiter because they know it's in play. Warsong Commander was the same way, but it was just such a huge space. Like, you can't print any minion with less than 3 attack without worrying about Warsong Commander. So in that respect, I think you're right. Like, it is a very safe change. JR.
I mean, I don't think I agree with the Emperor Thaurissan thing, because Emperor Thaurissan costs 6 mana, whereas Warsong Commander was 3. And you can do a lot of combos like late in the game with Warsong Commander that, yeah, you can do with Emperor Thaurissan, but if a player sees you drop Emperor Thaurissan, they know, okay, what might be coming if they know the deck well, and they can gear up for it on their turn, the turn after you dropped Emperor Thaurissan. Whereas Warsong Commander, like, you were never sure if they actually had it yet or not until the turn that they played it, because it was such a cheap card to play with other things. And I think that was the big thing, is it, because if you see a lot of the cards that have been nerfed, they're usually cheaper cards in the 2, 3, 4 range. You don't usually see something that is higher up that usually gets nerfed like this.
I mean, Gadgets and Auctioneer and Leroy would like a word, but you're right. Yeah, and I fundamentally I agree. This was 100% just a design space thing. Like, I think they could do a lot of things to account for cost cheapening, right? And they've been doing that all along with things like, how do we make sure that you can't get your spells too cheap in Mage using Sorcerer's Apprentice or whatever? Like, these are all cards where they have an effect on other cards and other plays, so the design team has to run the math of what will happen when these other cards are in play. But they really just didn't have a way to do that around Warsong Commander forever. They had already cramped the design space so much with it, there was nowhere really left to go. John, you had a thought.
I mean, the only thing I wanted to say in comparison with Thaurissan, the thing about Thaurissan is it reduces what you already have, right? With Warsong Commander and these other cards that had specific interactions with Warsong Commander, it allowed you to create something out of really nothing, right? A couple 0 mana cards, a couple whirlwinds, a couple no-cost whirlwinds thanks to Emperor Thaurissan. Things like that. You now have a board full of patrons, or, in my opinion, more devastating, a 20 attack, 1 health minion with charge that can one-shot you from 50 health. And that, I think is the big difference. Thaurissan it's changing what you're holding and your combinations possible. Warsong Commander, on the other hand, literally took something and allowed you to make something completely overwhelmingly broken from next to nothing. A few combo cards, and to your point, since day one, such an efficient cycle method that you could get it pretty regularly.
Yeah, you knew you could get your win condition every game without question.
And even with Gadget, Zan Auctioneer, and Leroy, I mean, Leroy was a forecasting cost card, which is still in the 2 to 5, and Gadget, Zan Auctioneer worked well because it worked with Rogue, which had a bunch of 0 casting spells. So it was still affected by cheap cards that you can still do your thing with.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, the other thing I wanted to touch on, because I think it's important, is the timing, right? We're doing this right before BlizzCon. This is not the first time we've been down this path. It's probably the first time that it's this significant because Patron is so dominant. But the timing on the Miracle change was not so different in terms of like where it occurred within the year relative to the World Championship. But the change that this creates is really significant because of the way that Conquest format works. So in Conquest, basically whatever you brought to a Conquest format tournament, all of the players are bringing decks where they're reasonably confident that they can take a game off of pretty much anything. You don't see sniping decks. You don't see anybody bringing the hard counter, I'm going to bring this particular Face Hunter deck that I know I can win this one particular matchup with. They need decks that can take games off just about anything. And Patron created this problem where you had to know that all 3 of your decks fundamentally would split 50-50 or better with Patron. If you were going to lose to Patron every time, then you knew that you couldn't close out a Conquest series if the last matchup was against Patron. And that has been the definition of the pro scene meta basically since Patron got figured out back in May. We've been dealing with this ever since. So with that out of the equation now, JR, you brought up timing first, so I'm going to throw it back to you. What do you think this does to the pro scene, and why is this timing good or bad in your opinion?
Well, I think for the most part, like the pro scene, like I think they wanted to do it before the World Championships because a lot of the complaints that you see on like Twitch and things like that is, man, Patron Warrior is so boring. I just fall asleep when I see it played. And if you see Patron Warrior versus Patron Warrior, it's like the worst thing you can ever watch. It's just so ridiculously dumb to watch on the screen and everything. And it just gives it a bad vibe on that tournament. It's like, because you're going to see Patron Warrior in every single person that's coming to that tournament. And it's just not going to be fun to watch. So I think one of the reasons why they did it now was because of that. They wanted to see people bring something different. And you're going to see, I think, a lot of Druid. You're still going to see a lot of Warlock. And then that third option is going to be, it could be anywhere from mid-range Hunter, which I doubt it. Could be Secret Paladin. It could be, a lot of different decks. So probably not Warrior anymore unless someone is, brings Control Warrior as one of their decks. But I think you're going to see, I don't think you're going to see a lot of new decks kind of emerge, but you're going to see a lot of decks that have already been kind of in the meta and have been pretty well be better in taking, that extra spot that they no longer have to have Patron Warrior there to compete with.
I think we're going to see Zoo come back in a big way. Because Zoo just got punished so bad from Patron Warrior that you didn't play it. I think Hybrid Hunter also has a chance to be that third, fourth top deck. I think you're going to see some people. I think Druid's a mainstay, especially with Patron gone, because it wasn't an awesome matchup, but it also wasn't completely horrible. So you're going to see mid-range Druid for sure. I don't think you're going to see as much Handlock anymore because Handlock was just really the hard counter to Patron. You brought that there, although you might just see the curve come down and see some more of those demon variants come in. And then, it's kind of between then that I think you might see Secret Paladin. It's done relatively well in some tournaments lately now that people aren't running Patron Warrior anymore. So, I don't know. I think, sadly, I don't think this is going to really shift into new decks as much as it's going to just bring back some old ones that were strong. And I think we're just going to go back to what we were seeing 7-8 months ago.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of board flood type of decks. You might see Rogue start playing something again with Violet Teacher. Just various things like that can flood the board, give you lots of minions. Even Shaman, you might start seeing again, being able to flood the board and then use Bloodlust or something like that. Those are the kind of decks that got punished against Patron Warrior.
Yeah, I think the thing for me that I think is the most interesting is Conquest is a format where it really favors decks that don't have 3 or more bad matchups, right? Because if you have a deck where you know that there's only 2 counters to it, you can win a game with it. And that is often all it takes to be able to set up a really efficient Conquest format stable for you to work from. So I expect to see stuff like Freeze Mage come back, because Freeze Mage really only gets punished by Mid-Range Druid, which is going to be super common, and Control Warrior, which, like you said, JR, is going to be maybe not. It's a risk. You take that risk because you're going to get punished by so many mid-range decks. But that third matchup, Freeze Mage has something absurd like a 75-80% win ratio against basically every other archetype in the game. It doesn't get held down by anything except for Control Warrior or things that can kill it faster than it can play. And that would be a gamble. But those are the kind of gambles I think that all of a sudden are relevant again in the new meta after we see some shift occur, because Patron's not holding down Zoo. It's not holding down any kind of token deck. It's not holding down board flood. You no longer have to be scared to play your own minions. And that's a huge change. And it's such a short time frame that I think the players who are going to do the best are the players who have the most experience with that quickly shifting meta, because you have to know a lot of different things are in flux right now, and there's a lot of tech that you otherwise, like, if you go back and you look at something like Tice's decks from the EU Championship, look how heavily teched they were. He knew that every opponent he was going to play was bringing Handlock, so he's got double BGH in 2 decks. He's running a Brawl in Patron Warrior to deal with the mirror. Like, they were super teched because you knew exactly what you were going to see. That's all gone. No one's going to be able to tech anywhere near as efficiently now. Like, I think it's going to make for a way more interesting World Championship, bottom line.
I agree.
I'll let you get by with that one.
Thanks, buddy.
You got it. Well, what more do you have for us, Kev? Anything else?
No, I think that's the perfect segue into taking a quick glance at the very last ever meta reports, while Patron Warrior is still sitting atop its very short-term expiry date throne.
Yep. Right. And with that, we had 2 meta reports this week. One from Tempo Storm and one from Fade to Karma. It doesn't look like Liquid Hearth had theirs this week. I think they're doing it every other week, right? Something like that. You know, John?
I have no idea.
All right. Well,
my friend Liquid Hearth and I aren't talking right now. We're fighting.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Cool. But if you look at the Tempo Storm one, the one that's been leading forever and for as long as I can remember now, is of course Patron Warrior, which will be the final week we see it in this location, I am sure. And then nothing's really changed from last week other than Aggro Druid has gone from a tier 2 deck to a tier 1 deck. That's the one that I took to Legend last week. So people are definitely seeing that a lot in the ladder. It's a good deck. It's right up there. There's 2 Druid decks in tier 1. You got Aggro Druid and Mid-Range Druid with Demon Handlock dropping down to tier 2, which I still think that's a tier 1 deck, to be honest. I think they just like to give 4 decks tier 1 status. But other than that, I mean, as far as Tempo Storm goes, everything seems roughly the same. You still see, Tempo Mage and Freeze Mage and Control Warrior up there. You still see Mid-Range Hunter, Mech Mage, Face Hunter, all kind of tier 2 decks. And then tier 3, it's roughly, there's, you start seeing some different things in there that I don't really see a lot of people play. I still think Hybrid Hunter isn't really a tier 3 deck. I think it should be maybe above mid-range at this point. Zulok might be making a comeback after Patron Warrior leaves. Right now that's sitting at tier 3. And Bloodlust Shaman is a tier 3. So that's the first Shaman deck we've seen make its way up there. As far as tier 4 goes, you see all of the Shaman decks, you see Mech Warrior, and you see Oil Rogue kind of sitting at the bottom. So, any surprises there that you guys see, or anything worth discussing?
I mean,
Aggro Druid's really good.
It's the last time you're going to see anything like this, right? Because the next time we have this conversation is going to be on the other side of BlizzCon. I do think you're going to see some iteration happen for BlizzCon. You know that there was a little bit of shift that occurred with decks going into BlizzCon last year. Firebat's Druid deck that he ended up winning with brought some new tech with Spectral Knight, Shade of Naxxramas. We hadn't really seen that in the meta prior to that. And there's going to be so much influx with these changes. Like, I think you're going to watch as some of these take meaningful shifts. I think, with all of the mid-range that's in play right now, because you had to have that sort of fast ability to close games out before Patron could win against you, that opens the door for a lot of aggro. And I think that's why Aggro Druid sprung up and ended up as a top-tier deck. I don't know how Aggro Druid would fare against a really control heavy meta, and that's probably where we're going next. Like, that's probably what's going to happen, is you're going to see control warrior and the long game priest decks and stuff like that make a comeback, because people are going to be looking to shut aggro down, and anything that can outlast those first, like, when does an aggro deck typically empty out? About turn 8 you're out of cards on average. Yeah,
so it depends on the one. Like, Hunter's gonna go round 5 or 6.
Yeah, so basically, if you can live through that 6, 7, 8 turn window that these aggro decks have, whether that's mech mages or aggro druids or whatever the case is, the only deck that's ever been able to recover from that was aggro paladin with divine favor to refill. Right, everybody else just runs out of steam. I think that's a really favorable place for control to start to roll back up top, because right now there's nothing for anything resembling a control deck other than warrior in either of those top 2 tiers.
Right. And I mean, other than Control Warrior, like, you're gonna see a lot of these. It's gonna be such an interesting meta, because I think you're gonna see Druid, Mage, and Warlock kind of be the stars of the 3 classes, and then you'll see a little bit of Priest, a little bit of Paladin. I'm really curious if Rogue is gonna make a comeback, because right now the only deck that is viable with Rogue is Oil Rogue. And I'm really wondering if we're going to see some new rogue decks come into play now that they're not getting punished by Patron Warrior. And I'm curious to see if if Rogue will do anything worth a damn in Constructed or not.
I don't know that Patron was the problem for Rogue, truthfully. I mean, I think Rogue just has this problem where there's only one way to play it. And when you queue into Rogue exactly what they're doing, right? The explosive growth.
Well, I think there's only one way to play it right now, because that's just the most popular way.
Well, no. Hear me out. Think about Warlock, okay? When Warlock truly took over the meta, that was because you had no idea when you queued into them, even how to mulligan. Is this Handlock? Is this Zoo, right? And right now, you could pretty safely say it's probably Handlock, but that's going to change again. And all of a sudden, you mulligan totally differently for those 2 matchups within one class. That's never been a problem with Rogue. You always know what their win condition is. You could make the same argument, frankly, for Shaman, right? You know that they're going to try to do board flood. You know that that's how they're going to win. Your control Shaman deck worked for people because no one expected it. No one is looking to deal with having their board cleared over and over again by spells against Shaman. It's never been a thing before. The decks that succeed the best at the highest level are decks that have all those different options. I think that's why Aggro Druid did so well, because everybody's trying to play around mid-range. They're not expecting to have to deal with early damage. They're not expecting to be having to be on the back foot and play defensive. They expect to be in the beatdown position and just waiting for you to ramp up for those first couple turns. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that that's going to change, because there's so much influx in this meta right now. Like, that the opportunities that opens doors for, I don't think affect Rogue yet. I think it still needs new cards from BlizzCon, but almost every other class right now has the opportunity to do something new, in my opinion.
I just don't think I really do think that an aggro Rogue could be really, really good, and I just don't think people have invested the time to really try it and see what you can do with it. Just because, I don't know why, but I think an aggro Rogue deck could be one of the best aggro decks out there if we can get the right list going.
I mean, I think the problem with Rogue is that they've never gotten any class cards that create those kind of efficiencies that you need for an aggro deck, right? Mage didn't have a viable aggro deck until Mech Mage, and even then, it really only works.
It did.
Truth, well,
Back
did
in
it though?
beta.
Okay,
Early
okay. In the last year and a half, there hasn't been an aggro deck other than Mech Mage for Mage. The only reason that worked is because there was so much good, obvious early game synergy, right? That Snow Chugger into Goblin Blast Mage, like that's what made that deck work. And you couldn't just pick that up and port it into Rogue because Rogue has Iron Sensei. Like there's no aggro efficiency cards in the early game in Rogue.
I really just think Rogues, their cards are so synergistic with spells that when you're introducing these minions that really don't have any synergies with their spells, they don't make them any stronger. And so I think that's why part of them are so good at Arena, because they have so many good minions, but unfortunately it doesn't give them reach and give them the control of the game that they need to be competitive in tournaments and on the ladder. And so I don't know. Personally, I think once we get some minions that synergize well with the spells, think Hello SI7 Agent, things like that, you're going to start to see something more come from Rogue. But personally, right now, with Rogue's arsenal, I don't think we have enough tools or the right tools to see a different type of meta in Rogue. It's why even before Blackrock Mountain and before this last expansion with TGT, we still, are only seeing just variations. I mean, how much different really is Oil Rogue than Miracle Rogue, in the sense that you took out Auctioneer and took out some of the spells and filled them up with some of the new weapons and things that have come out since. In the end, everything is relied on those spells, and until they can find some, minions that synergize well with those spells, I don't think we're going to see a minion-based Rogue anytime soon. And the closest we've got is that Violet Teacher token Rogue thing that was up for about a month and then, faded into irrelevancy.
I think that deck that you're talking about, though, could come back, because I think that deck can do very well against some of these decks that we're going to start seeing at the top of the meta, such as Secret Paladin. I mean, imagine a scenario where you pop off all of the secrets after the Paladin does his mysterious challenger thing, and then you sap whatever minion was out there that got big.
Yeah, but I mean, there's lots of good tools in Rogue to deal with stuff that's in the meta. It's all reactive, right? You're always responding to what your opponent did. Like, Rogue needs something to build an aggressive early board, and they don't have it. In the early game, what are you going to play as Rogue? You're going to play like Buccaneer, Cut Purse, One-Eyed Cheat. Like, these are not things that are going to be efficient or effective. When Defias Ringleader was good, aggro Rogue worked, right? You could coin that out and do a whole bunch of damage in the early game. Now, there's just nothing there, right? Rogue needs like shielded Rogue Bot, right? It needs something that just will hit the board and stick in the early game. And until it gets it, I don't know how they're gonna mix it up and give them a new way to play.
Yeah, Rogue definitely doesn't need 1/1s either, because their hero power is virtually 2 1/1s, in how it's kind of work and run. And it's not a token thing for what it needs. What Rogue really needs is a way to control the board from a minion perspective with, to Kevin's point, something like a shielded mini bot.
Well, when the next meta report comes out in a couple weeks, and Rogue finds a way up there.
Oh my God, get out.
Well,
You're
for what it's worth,
You've been drinking.
Tempo Storm calling Oil Rogue tier 4 is always been something that we've kind of been like a little on the fence about, because it's one of those decks where I don't think it has a matchup that's worse than like 40%. Like, I don't think Oil Rogue gets hard countered by almost anything. Really. Right? It takes games off of people in places that it shouldn't, in ways that it, probably doesn't deserve to. So I could see something working out for an Oil Rogue player who's good at it, but it's not a meta deck, and it's not going to be a meta deck for a long time.
We'll see.
We'll see.
This guy.
Yeah. Do we have anything we want to touch on with Fade to Karma?
As far as Fate to Karma goes, I mean, I have a rough time with the ranking a little bit. The way that they rank theirs is a lot different than Tempo Storm because they kind of rank the classes and then give you the archetypes beyond that. And of course, they have Paladin as number 1 because of Secret Paladin, mid-range Paladin. They have Warrior as number 2, and they always had Control Warrior above Patron Warrior, which always seemed weird to me. And it always seemed weird that they had those flip-flopped. So I'm curious to where that's going to fall after the Patron Warrior nerf. But then they had Druid right after that, tied with Warrior. But the thing that surprised me is they have Combo Druid as the main archetype with 92%. And you don't see mid-range Druid or... I guess that would be mid-range Druid, maybe.
Yeah, they mean
maybe
the same
Combo
thing.
Druid means the same thing. But I don't see Aggro Druid on there. And I feel like
among
that's...
mid-range Druid, you find, mid-range Druid and fast Druid and combo Druid really all kind of go into one big bottle. It really just depends on what turns 6 through 9 look like for them as to what the differences are. So you're going to see those together a lot.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything that was big was basically Paladin, Warrior, Druid, Hunter, Mage, Warlock. You know, the main ones we always talk about every week. And then Priest is kind of in between good and bad. And then, of course, you know, the bottom one, they always have Rogue and Shaman, which, you know, falls kind of in place with what Tempo Storm has.
Yeah.
And I would agree.
And again, this is just a representation of what's being played on the ladder more than just, these are the strongest and best decks. So that's always something to keep in mind with them too. I personally like it because it allows me, rather than saying, here's the best deck this week, what you're seeing is because that really doesn't matter, right? Whatever the best deck is actually not super relevant when you're trying to ladder. As much
you want
as
what's going to counter what people are playing.
Yes, finding a deck that's going to get you the most wins because it wins against the decks that are being played the most. And obviously, the best deck is still the best deck. Then you have to play the best deck with the best players who are playing the best deck. It's kind of the whole basis that we use for beat 'em or join 'em, right? And so, yeah.
Now they did, I noticed, have a new deck in here for Rogue, Pirate Rogue. So we're already starting to see something new for Rogue, guys.
Wishful thinking, my friend. Wishful thinking. And this is all, like, it's fun to talk about, but these reports are basically meaningless at this point because it's all going to be so different over the course of the next 2-3 weeks. We're going to be talking about entirely different top tier decks by the time we come back from BlizzCon.
Like Rogue.
Cool. All right, what do we have left here on the show? I got to look at this here. Are we already, like, to the end here? Is there anything else we need to talk about today?
Man, I think the big thing was that whole Warsong Commander deal. I mean, that was...
It's so significant. I mean,
right.
You guys could disagree. I think that is the single most significant nerf the game has ever gotten. Like outside of beta, because beta was all like stuff's in flux, and they're changing cards intentionally because it's a test period. Post beta, I think it's the single biggest change that's been made in the game.
Do we count the Leroy nerf as in beta? Because it was right at the trail end, like a week before it went live.
Gadget's and Auctioneer was pretty huge, but I don't remember if that was beta or not.
As far as big nerf, as far as like card change and text change, I completely agree. The Leroy one, though, pretty much destroyed because it used to do, like, you could do all sorts of crazy things with, like, you know, Faceless Manipulator, you know, double Leroy, Power Overwhelming, whatever, to get that. Yeah, it was, you'd play Leroy, Power Overwhelming, Faceless Manipulator, go face for 20 damage.
Yep.
That was my first time I ever hit rank 5, by the way, with that deck. Good old hand lock. A little bit faster in those days.
That was back in the day when I played in tournaments when they did mana grind, and I won one of the tournaments there of like 128 people or so. It was an aggro Warlock deck that basically used that combo.
Oh, yeah. What about Undertaker, man? That was huge, too. That
Undertaker, they killed that card.
But, I mean...
It didn't kill It didn't kill the deck, but it killed that card. I mean, it killed that specific deck, but Face Hunter and stuff is still around.
That's true. I mean, Hybrid Hunter is, you could throw Undertaker back in that today and it would be the same. If it
you could put it back in mid-range. There's lots of ways you could play. I don't know. I mean, I think both in terms of card text and bottom line effect on the meta, this is the biggest change the game has seen to date. And for the right reason, really. Like, I think
I still say Leroy because it was a neutral.
Well, neutral, yeah. I mean, in that respect, sure, but
I think the only one close to it was Gadgets and Auctioneer because it just completely killed off Miracle Rogue. And this
player versus player versus. We'll do this one. We should do it. Yeah. Anyways, it's gonna be a fresh time coming back from BlizzCon, seeing no more Patron Warriors, seeing really incredible deck builders and players coming in and starting to build decks and not being afraid that building decks and creating new archetypes is taking away from their time from, training for BlizzCon or big tournaments and things like that. So I'm really excited for us to get into the second half of November because I think we're going to have a really exciting time with this meta. I was hoping we were going to see it before BlizzCon, but we're just not. We're actually seeing people like take breaks. I mean, JR got to Legend in like 11 days. I mean, all the other Legend players must have been napping or something. So
shots fired.
Just like the final day of the season, like you.
4 days before the season ended, sir.
All right.
4 days. And I did it with the deck that'll still see play in a month. Let me know how Aggro Druid looks in a month.
Doesn't matter.
He's going to switch to Rogue.
Yeah. Let me know how your minion Rogue works on the ladder next season, JR.
Okay, I'll build it and play it now and see how far I get when I'm playing other Legend players and whoop their ass with whatever Rogue deck I come up with.
Hey, watch your language. I'm going to have to take that out. Thanks a lot. We got people listening with their kids, man.
I'm not sure what I said, but okay.
Send your hate mail to jrcook@blizzpro.com. You're welcome. All right. I think we need to get out of here, don't you think?
Yeah, there's just so much. I mean, I could talk about that Warsong Commander nerf for 3 more hours, and nobody wants that, so make me stop. Just make me stop.
Cool. We're going to go ahead then and wrap it up. First and foremost, thank you to our patrons who support the show every week. You guys are incredible. Allow us to do a lot of really cool things. If you want to contribute to the show, you can go ahead and do that at patreon.com/wellmetpodcast. Big thank you this week to Michael D for your support. And yeah, thanks so much. What about iTunes review, JR?
So we got a couple iTunes reviews, more than a couple actually. From the USA, we got Etwanbro, Kenny from Coin Concede, Frosty Feats, Limmer, and Chris, also known as Slippo, which, sorry, I'm not familiar with that name, so John might know who it is since he put it in the notes.
He just put it in parentheses literally on the iTunes review.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like, oh, gotcha. That's Slippo. Although I do think he's following on Twitter, so
cool.
Awesome. I manage the Twitter though, so yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for those reviews. They help us out so much. They help us get noticed by other listeners and help increase, people who we can share this with, and also, people that maybe can come into our subreddit and, partake in some of the discussions going on in there. So awesome.
We had an awesome discussion going on in the subreddit about the Warsong nerf. Like, it's a lot of fun right now over hanging out in the subreddit. It's actually pretty busy too. There's a lot more people there than I actually expected. I thought it was just going to be JR, Kevin, and I just chatting it up. Cool subreddit, guys. Cool.
Agreed.
Kevin, what are you up to this week?
Honestly, not a whole lot. Just a lot of work. The pre-BlizzCon season means I'm trying to just get a ton of material out, do all my predictions for all the different esports finals that we're going to be watching at BlizzCon, prep my interview questions for all the people I'm going to talk to while I'm down there, get stuff ready for us to get up and hang out with people at Con Before the Storm, because that's coming up real soon here, and I want to have a lot of fun with that. So I'm just going to be working away all week, taking the occasional break to play a little bit of Heroes, a little bit of Hearthstone. That's my life right now, man. I leave this desk to sleep.
Cool. That's fair. JR, what about you, man?
Work's ramping up this week. Got a lot of BlizzCon stuff I got to start preparing for with BlizzPro. Already starting to get our interviews scheduled and things like that. So the whole BlizzCon preparation is a real thing for the next few weeks until that happens. And then just baseball, Kansas City Royals, 2 games away from making the World Series. I have tickets for the World Series, so hopefully that happens and I can go again, because that'll be pretty cool.
Nice. Awesome. Well, as for me, we've actually got a pretty exciting announcement, and I think it's okay if we make it on the show now. Starting this week, this Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, Mr. Kevin Hovdestad, Mr. Jimmy Blockstrom, and myself will be starting episode 1 of The Payload. It's going to be an Overwatch podcast, and we're super amped. We got to watch all the live streams and all the announcements over the last couple weeks, and we're so excited. I got fresh new music coming in that is just insane. Will absolutely blow your mind. Maybe I'll get to play it here for chat, kind of as just a little kind of thing. We just have the rough, stuff right now, but it is incredible. We're so excited to do it. So I really, really, really can't wait for you to hang out with us and listen. If you want to come with us for our inaugural first show, same time, same place, different day of the week. So it'll be Thursday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time over at twitch.tv/BlizzPro.
Man, I'm pretty excited to check that out, because I'm not an FPS player. Like, I am terrible at them. I played a little bit of Call of Duty on like the Xbox and stuff like that. I played Halo, but I'm not very good at them. But watching that live stream this last week with Overwatch, the game just looked so much more fun than I gave it credit for. And I even got to play it at BlizzCon. That, I don't know, I'm excited to see what you guys have to say on it, and I hope that by listening to it, maybe I can become better at these kind of games.
You're a lost cause, JR. You're a lost cause. All right. Well, as always, a big thank you to Jake Butno, who does our music over here for Well Met. It's jakebutno.ca. Please go check him out. He's got some awesome stuff going on there. A lot of really cool synthy stuff. He's doing like music for video games and stuff now. Like, the dude's incredible. I got so lucky that I connected to him before he ends up getting rich and famous. Big thanks to Dread Scythe. He's done our layouts and stuff here, and he's also just finished our layout for The Payload, and it's really awesome too. I'm really excited for you guys to see it. Send us your emails over at wellmet@blizzpro.com. You can send us tweets at wellmetpodcast and our individuals at the end of the show. You can check out our Patreon over at patreon.com/wellmetpodcast. And of course, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, and everywhere else where you can listen to podcasts. Thank you guys so much again, and we will see you next week.
You can find John on Twitter at KickedTripod and on Twitch at twitch.tv/KickedTripod. You can find JR on Twitter at Eldorian and on Twitch at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. And you can find Kevin on Twitter at Lack of Realism and on Twitch at twitch.tv/OdinTV. BlizzPro.com. Beyond Noob.